Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie spoiler review, and today I'll be covering, honestly, one of easily so far my favorite X-Men movie of all time, Days of Future Past, when it did such a great job blending the new X-Men properties with the original X-Men properties. And this is before, like, Deadpool and the MCU is going to be changing stuff up. But this is during the time when Fox had all the rights to the X-Men. And I honestly think they should have just ended it on a high note with this one, because Apocalypse and then Dark Phoenix, which I'll be reviewing the last two X-Men movies after this one, petered out to such... No, that'd be generous, petering out. This is like a straight up crash and burn. I was like, oh my goodness. Just mercy kill it already. It's like, this movie is such, like, man, it's like, talking about like leading us astray, man. Because you thinking like after this, just grandiose, most impressive display of what we love about the X-Men, and like your follow-up is just gets worse and worse. Unbelievable. But anyway, before we continue, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this with your friends. Let me know what you think of X-Men Days of Future Past. And okay, this is directed by Bryan Singer, who done a fair amount of the X-Men movies. We got Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, James McAvoy, and Patrick Stewart, respectively playing Odin, Young, Professor X. Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen play Young and Old Magneto. Jennifer Lawrence playing Raven Mystique. Halle Berry returns as Storm. Nicholas Hoult and Kelsey Grammer coming back as Young and Old Beast. Anna Paquin returns as Rogue. Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page, returns as Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat. You got Peter Dinklage playing as Boulevard Trask. Sean Ashmore returns as Bobby Drake Iceman. Omar Sy plays Bishop. Evan Peters plays Quicksilver. Josh Hellman plays William Stryker without a southern accent. Daniel Cudmore reprises his role as Peter Rasputin Colossus. You got Fan Bingbing, yes, that's her real name, plays Blink. Add in Kanto as Sunspot and Boo Stewart as Warpath, or Bobo Stewart. So, I mean, like, everybody in this film does a phenomenal job in their respective roles. And everybody from the present to, or present slash past to the present slash future, everyone has a moment to shine. And yes, I did watch the road cut of this, because I got a little bit more out of it, even though I love the theatrical cut did an incredible job too. But usually go with the director's cut. But we're in this apocalyptic future, kind of based off of the Days of Future Past event comic, which I will cover eventually. I just got to get through these last two solo comics of Quicksilver and then Scarlet Witch before we get into the X-Men team up stuff. But Days of Future Past is an event where Sentinels took over. There's usually two different timelines, where one, Apocalypse took over, and the other is when Sentinels took over. And when the Sentinels took over, they kind of seeded this and ironically, which X-Men movie was that? X-Men X2, with Pyro mentions to Bobby Drake's parents that it is like, understood that the males carry the X gene. So the Sentinels, like many times in the comics, turn against the humans because they see like, oh, you guys are the root. And we gotta eradicate mutants, but mutants are human, and human beings, carry the gene that will lead to more mutants. So y'all gotta go. So when the movie starts off, it's pretty harrowing and bleak, but the way it ends is a nice little, hopeful ending. So we see that there's only like scraps of mutants still around, and most of them are majority of them either dead, or some are leading to like literal concentration camps, or just on the run. So Xavier, Magneto, Storm, and Wolverine meet up with Iceman, Blink, Bishop, Sunspot, and Shadowcat after they, escape the clutches of some Sentinels, because eventually they, start, because they got a tracking mechanism to track down mutants, and they are able to adapt to whatever power is being put on them by a mutant. And so we learned that Shadowcat has a secondary mutation power where she can send the consciousness of somebody to their past self back a few days, up to maybe a month, to warn them about possible Sentinel attack, so that way they can get out there a few days earlier, so they can always be one step ahead of the Sentinels. Xavier and the others come to them with an idea where they can use Shadowcat's powers to send one of them back in time 50 years in the past to their younger self, in order to stop the Sentinel program before they even come off the ground. And it's soon discovered that they start off with these Sentinels with the DNA they got from Mystique, after Mystique assassinated Trask, because he was instrumental in the deaths and experimentations of the first class members. Like you see, like, the coroner's report of Angel and Riptide and Banshee and like the demon looking dude, I forgot his doggone name, was pretty much like Nightcrawler's father. And so Mystique's on the kind of revenge trip, and Trask will be her first kill. So they need to try to stop Mystique before that happens, so that way Trask won't get support, because his death will be instrumental in the support of getting these Sentinels off the ground. Now, don't know why it wasn't a thing in the original timeline when in the first X-Men movies, and not something that was like, okay, already a thing, but maybe they were still working on it. Because at the end of the Wolverine, when post credit, when Wolverine comes through the airport and stop by Xavier and Magneto, which, by the way, how's Professor X is still alive, because you saw at end of X3, his mind transferred into a body who just happens to also be paralyzed for some odd reason. Why people still ponder that to this day. But you see on the television monitors in the airport about the introduction to the Sentinel program. Now, in the original timeline, is introduced here in the modern day, because after, I guess, Mystique's abilities, and they kind of like really kind of boosted their capabilities, you know, to devastating levels. But they're kind of clunky in the 70s prior to that. So that's why you see all these guys teaming up together. Anyway, so they decide, okay, we'll send Wolverine's mind back, because, you know, even though Kitty could easily send people as far back, but their mind will they'll just turn to a vegetable if they send it too far back. So Wolverine, since his healing powers, you know, I guess his brain tissue can just reattach itself as rapidly as it's tearing itself apart because of the strain going that far back. So he's the only one that's capable of doing this. So he goes back to 1973, and Xavier and Magneto warned them, like, yo, we're what you know us to be personally isn't how we were back in the 70s. Like, you know, it kind of should have elaborated a little bit more on that, but time was of the essence, I guess. So, you know, Xavier, we learned that after the events of First Class, he was devastated after falling out with Magneto, with the Vietnam War kicking up, and, you know, because it was 10 years since the events of First Class, up to the point of 1973. So during the first, literally halfway through the first semester of his school, tons of his children were drafted to the Vietnam War, including Havoc, as we see him in among other mutants who are literally quarantined off from everybody else, along with Toad, yeah, you know, Ray Park Toad, but not really Ray Park, with some other dude playing this Toad, and they actually give him a little bit more like a Toad-like facial features. I kind of prefer, ironically, the Ray Park one in the first X-Men movie, but this was during the 70s, I guess, so it's like you might, you know, got a little bit streamlined in the early 2000s, whatever. And that's where Mystique kind of in disguise showed up, liberated them, getting them on a plane back home, while she continues on trying to find, you know, trying to get up the ladder, try to find her way into the same room as Trask in order to take him out. So Wolverine's back, but during the 70s he had his bone claws. He didn't get to the Weapon X program yet. So how it, you know, like, you don't try to think too hard about how it fits in with X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think a lot of people agree you probably should separate that as much as you can. But let's just say it was around the time he left after the whole situation in Africa, and this is in between that and when Strucker well, no, it's probably something. Yeah, it was because in X-Men Origins Wolverine, during one of the flashbacks, right before there was going to be like the firing squad, he would be in Vietnam, So it's like he's back at home. So maybe he was on leave at the time. In the natural course of events, he probably may have been on leave or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, he goes to the X Mansion. It's pretty much like closed off. And he sees like young Beast. And it's a nice little fun moment where he just messing around with Beast. It's like, oh wow, you're such a scrawny little kid, huh? And he's trying to like, force the door open. It's like, oh, so you are you sure the Beast don't want to come out? Oh, you kind of strong for a scrawny kid, ain't you? And he sees Xavier. He's walking, mostly because of the serum that Beast takes to keep him looking human. He used that same serum to help. It was it was during the 70s, so the whole drug situation was like all over the place. So Xavier needed something to kind of numb things because he's hit rock bottom. This is way before somewhere along the line before he reclaimed his hope in humanity and mutants coming together. I imagine in the original timeline is after the Vietnam War ended and everybody's coming home. Sometime maybe after that, in the early 80s, maybe. But here's a little bit sooner where Wolverine explains to him, because he's using this drug to kind of numb the pain because he's really going through it. Wolverine explains to him that he's a time traveler. We need to fix things. We need to find Mystique. We need to find Magneto first, because both of y'all send me back here. Y'all working together. The future is horrible. We need to find Magneto so we can stop Mystique from committing this, kill. And it's a funny little moment, kind of half callback because they didn't get the line right. But Xavier remembers trying to come to Wolverine from in first class, and Wolverine says like go fuck yourself. But here maybe you can excuse the fact that he's like literally numbing himself with drugs. He's so it's like tells him like go fuck off, but wasn't an exactly right line, but it's still. I remember watching in the theater, everybody still cheered at that moment because the fact that or not cheered but laughed, because technically he remembers. We just butchered the saying, but it's neither here nor there. It's still fun. It's still like a funny line. But he managed to convince Beast and Xavier to help get Magneto out, but he realized that they need to do this quickly, so they find Pietro, who we know to be Magneto's son. But there's a little hush-hush here inside the movie. But a nice little touches here when you go to the Maximoff house. Like, a little mailbox that says Maximoff. Somewhere after when Magneto probably left Xavier, he met up with Peter's mom and father children, but he probably, unbeknownst to him, she was pregnant when he left. But you see like nice touches like scorch marks on the welcome carpet outside the doorway, showing how, and in the carpet inside the house, how it's like, from all his running, it's all like, kind of scorched up. And you see him in the basement, a bunch of snack cakes and all this pilfered stuff. But it's like a cool display of his super speed, honestly. So they convince him to help him get somebody out of the Pentagon, which is where they keep Magneto in this underground glass bubble plastic prison, like not unlike how they would do it in the early 2000s. because he, well, they think he's the cause of JFK's assassination with the whole curving of the bullet and everything like that in real life. It turns out that it was Magneto trying to stop the assassination by Lee Harvey Oswald, which kind of makes no sense given the fact that Magneto at this point should have been perfectly capable of stopping that bullet in midair. But also, how did they manage to get a hold of Magneto in that whole entire confusion to imprison him in the first place? But it turns out, JFK was a mutant that he was trying to save. It would have been nice to at least tell us what his mutant power would have been. Maybe just, power of persuasion or sway or something like that, because he was a very charismatic person in real life. And we also get like a nice little display of, Quicksilver's powers when he's, people love this scene, and I can see why, with time slowing down and he's like moving things around to take out all those guards. I think I like it better in Apocalypse, when him saving everybody in that giant mansion. I think it's done way better. But they managed to get Magneto out, but he doesn't come along with them, which I think he probably would have been useful. But Xavier, had like a all-out argument with Magneto on a plane, mind you, and it's probably not a good idea to upset him, given the fact that he can just literally crash everybody to the ground. Because they're trying to get to Washington or not Washington, but Paris during this peace summit for like the end of the Vietnam War. And clearly, like, the professor is just like losing it. The one person the closest to him that he grew up with, to another man who he feels kind of got inside her head. And Magneto lost people too, not only like Raven, who not only Raven but also Angel and Banshee and all the others, because how, I don't know how they got captured, but they end up getting doing some kind of attack they was mission they was probably on, trying to take out people. They end up getting captured. Don't know how they didn't experiment on literally the master of magnetism while they got him holding, but they never dived too far into how they captured the others, especially a guy who can teleport. They even, like, in a kind of like horrific, bleak look, they literally got like not only Magneto's helmet on a display case, but also one of the wings of Angel on display, like like one of those kind of butterfly cases. That's like, man. And you here on this plane, you see like Xavier like literally like pondering like whether or not, like, with what Wolverine explained to explain how the future is to them, he's starting to wonder if what Magneto says was probably true. There's no peaceful coexistence. He's struggling with that, which is like, kudos to McAvoy. His like acting chops is like kind of stellar performance, man. Like I said, it's like, I think like it's hard to say who's like better. I think like the top ones is like the Professor X and Magneto actors, and Hugh Jackman. Probably at the tippy top. Oh, and Jennifer Lawrence are probably at the tippy top of like impressive acting capabilities out of an entire cast. And it's like a large roster that they gotta juggle here. Um, so you see them like Magneto trying to do like an olive branch thing and actually lay out a chess set. And literally, there's a funny little moment, kind of like a callback, I guess, where uh Xavier's like, like you make the first move, and indeed, like Magneto will make the first move, because Magneto ain't there to just not just stop Raven, but just kill her outright to avoid the devastating future. Even older Magneto called it. It's like how we were back then. This is gonna be a trying situation, because he knows himself. He knows what he'll probably try to do some underhanded stuff. So thanks to Trask's little device that points out that, because Mystique took on the appearance of a Vietnamese general, to get inside the little room where Trask would be, to take him out. Of course, in the original timeline, she would have been successful, but she would have been stopped by Stryker with like a taser weapon. Technically, a taser weapon would still happen, but they came in right before she fired off the round. So of course, when Wolverine sees Stryker, his memory starts like kind of because trauma hits him pretty hard, which caused his present day body kind of freaking out. His claws pop off and he's flailing around, and he ends up cutting a little bit into Shadowcat. And now she's kind of like she's hurt, they're nursing her and everything like that, but it's like she's trying to maintain focus while bleeding. It's not bleeding to death, but she's bleeding still. And so this kind of shakes out the future Wolverine, his present day self or past self. It's like, what the hell's going on? Where am I? And of course, Mystique's trying to run out the window, which everybody now see her blue form. Beams are out now, and Magneto, still sends the bullet flying right after her and hits her in the leg, which leaves a blood splatter on the ground, which they will collect, and it's still going to happen. The whole situation with the Sentinel is still going to happen. So they get out of there, and Magneto had they eventually meet up. Magneto gets stopped by Raven at a certain point after she nurses her leg a bit. Magneto points out that hey, like, if we're trying to preserve our future, like, I have to do what I have to do, because like the events you will set in motion will cause the utter extinction of our species. But then Xavier was convinced by Wolverine. It's like, don't take no more of that stuff. We need Professor X. We need you at full capacity. So he tried using Cerebro to reach out and find Raven, but he doesn't have confidence in himself, and points out that like with any mutant, it's not just what's happening here. You gotta feel it too. So Wolverine tells him, and it's kind of a nice little switch between student and teacher here, where it was original timeline, it was Xavier mentoring people like Wolverine in order to be the best of he can be, because he is the best of what he does. But now he, as much as he only can get so far with Xavier, but he realized, like, I'm I'm not like that excellent of a teacher like that. I can't like my wisdom only can go so far. Even though he lives over 200 freaking years, he should have like the ultimate wisdom. But he realized like I can't, you know, like I'm hitting a wall with you. Then I know I can't reach you, but I know someone who can reach you. So he has young Xavier reach inside his mind to the future, where there's a cool moment to see young Xavier and old Xavier having a conversation, and it's old Xavier trying to tell his younger version of himself that we need you to hope again. Because trying to give him that boost and confidence he needs, because that line is an awesome line, and it repeated that line in Doctor Strange 2 when you're talking about Wanda. It's like even if somebody stumbles, kind of butchers that. Let me say the right line here. Well, there you go. Just because someone stumbles and loses their path doesn't mean they can't be saved. There's a lot of turns out there's a lot of famous quotes by Xavier. But that's the most iconic one. And this, I mean, you gotta see the scene. It's very well done. These actors are just dominating these scenes. And so this gives him this boost of confidence. All the while, well, he goes back to Cerebro and manages to reach her into this. He's not going to go inside her mind. He's not going to invade, but he will go inside the other people around her in this airport, try to convince her just to come home. Like, look, we can prevent all this stuff. All you have to do is just come home. And of course, she just, is on this one track mind of vengeance. And he doesn't know where she's going to, but in the dress cut, she's heading actually back to the Xavier mansion. But she's not. She's only there to destroy because Beast let her in. And in the road cut, to kind of bring back the whole establishment of these two of their relationship they had. But this was just like a ploy. This kind of recedes like the beginnings of Mystique that we knew in the early 2000 movies, how she just infiltrates and just cold, and it's all the stuff we've seen her do. This is, she's learning all this stuff along the way here. We see little pockets of the stuff, the warrior and the spy, and the callousness of the nature that she does certain things in the name of mutant liberation. But she only goes there to destroy the Cerebro, so that way, kind of not too dissimilar to how in the first movie where she went to destroy Cerebro there too. So that way Xavier won't just keep popping up and interrupting while she's trying to do what she needs to do. So, oh well, in the future, in the road cut, which we get to cool see the Anna Paquin again, and Bobby realizing that Shadowcat, needs rest, and knowing that we can properly nurse her wound, we need to find Rogue, who we know is being experimented on in the old Xavier mansion, which is now, who used to be like a hub for a safe haven for mutants, and now turned to this dilapidated, grotesque abomination, a perverted version of that now, where Bobby and Magneto and Xavier go quickly to the mansion using like an X jet, but how you get the power source for it. But they go there, and all in the same sequence as young Magneto is trying to get his helmet. They go inside and rescue Rogue, but the Sentinels are called upon, and Bobby stayed behind in order to Magneto and Rogue to escape. He dies in the process, and so they return, now realizing one of the Sentinel robots left the arm with like a tracking device on the ship, which in the theatrical cut, you don't see like how they find them. You just assume they just tracked them down. Here you see like they left a beacon so they'll know exactly where to go. So Rogue siphons off Kitty's power so she can maintain the connection between past Wolverine and present Wolverine. So you see an awesome display of young Magneto. You thought like him lifting like a Golden Gate Bridge, or like a satellite dish was impressive, or even like a submarine was impressive. Him lifting a whole entire baseball stadium, all the while controlling Sentinels who he earlier in a previous night, put metal inside so he can functionally control them, is an impressive display of Magneto's abilities. This is awesome. This is a far cry from just pulling a submarine from the water. This is like a whole nother level. So all the while this happening and trying to stop Mystique from assassinating Trask, in the future, the Sentinels tracked him down. Everybody's doing whatever they can to like hold them off, but one by one they get taken down in a horrific display. I was just like, man, it's sad. And I'm glad they kind of discussed earlier in the first arc where it's like, well, if you travel in the past and you manage to do change things, everything we've gone through right now, who knows if we would even exist. And it's like, I'm glad they had a discussion, but it's just like, yeah, as opposed to what they're going through now, hey, like, as long as it's like a peaceful thing, like, because like, I don't want this as a future. I wouldn't want this as a future, regardless of the circumstances. Like, whoever, it's kind of like in the arc in the 90s X-Men TV show when they do the whole Days of Future Past, no, the Age of Apocalypse thing, where Storm and Wolverine are together because of the whole situation of what transpired that will lead to the original timeline of Age of Apocalypse. They corrected, it went back in time to help save Xavier's life so they can correct that timeline, and no, they don't end up together and that relationship ceased to exist. So yeah, just they see that with Bobby and Shadowcat, their relationship completely went non-existent now, and because just like in the comics, at least for a little while, Colossus and Shadowcat are together, meant to be together, or not meant to be, well, at least at the time they were meant to be together, and is Bobby and Rogue. Anyway, so all the while this carrying on, in the past, Magneto's about to literally take out, President Nixon and all the cabinet members along with Trask. on in front of view of the cameras, as the whole world is watching, including his son Pietro. So Mystique, disguised as a president, takes a plastic, gun, shoots Magneto through the neck. It doesn't kill him, but it just definitely like wounds him. Because this is like it just got took a one side of the neck out the other kind of thing. So now Mystique is like got her gun pointed at Trask. Xavier freezes everybody, just like, psychically talks with Mystique. Is like, look, I don't want to control you, like, or your actions, but it's like, you got to understand, you taking this person's life is not going to bring our friends back. It's only going to cause more problems. You got to be the better person that I know you are. So because how good Xavier is with talking people down usually, and the confidence he finally got from his future self, because he saw like the hope in his future self and all the students he'll have, the life he'll have, the joy he'll bring. It's like that will happen, but we gotta make sure we avoid this. So Mystique doesn't take out Trask. As a result, Trask is get brought up on charges after his discovery. He was trading secrets or something. But we wonder what happened with Wolverine. He tried to go after Magneto, but Magneto takes some like metal piping, get through his body, sends him flying to the ocean, where he's repeatedly drowning to death. Even though he keeps healing, but he's drowning. He's found later by Mystique, disguised as Stryker, but how he ends up with the Weapon X program, that's still part confusing along the way, because you see him in Apocalypse in one of the containers being experimented on, looking like he did with the whole visor thing, all that other stuff. But his mind eventually snaps back into his body, into the new present day. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But Magneto and Mystique escape. The Sentinel program is completely shut down, completely. And now the hope for a better future is on the horizon, as we think. But now Wolverine's mind is snapped back to the new present day. He technically lived out his life, but the memories he had during the whole course of the original timeline snaps back, and he sees all the people that he knew: Bobby Drake, Rogue, Colossus, Shadowcat, Storm. And we even see like Famke K. Jensen's. Everybody was so excited to see like Famke K. Jensen's Jean Grey back alive again, and you see my boy James Marsden back as Cyclops, not dead. Everybody was like, oh my god, like I literally applauded. I was happy. It's like, yeah, this is justice for Scott. Like, yeah, like, because he was done dirty. And then he asks Xavier to catch him up on the past 50 years. And of course you got like an end credit with Apocalypse and everything like that, starting off like a new, carrying on with the original cast for the timelines. But that is X-Men Days of Future Past. Man, like I said, man, I love this film. This is an incredible film. The theatrical cut is still great, but I highly recommend just to watch the road cut. For some reason, it's not on freaking Disney Plus. I have to go on Amazon Prime to rent it and watch it. It's like, why? we got all the X-Men movies and stuff like that, and Fox gave it to Marvel, and Marvel and DC are working in tandem together. Why isn't it all on Disney Plus? It's freaking bonkers, man. Just like with all the Ghost Rider stuff and maybe Blade. I don't think Blade is up on there. That's like, why? Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of Days of Future Past, because this is like an amazing film. Along the way, I pointed out the issues I have, you know, as it came to mind. But overall, it's a phenomenal film. You know, everybody has their own little motivations, that, you know, their own arcs is done very well. Nothing felt bloated or like, you know, truncated. I don't want to say truncated, but nothing felt bloated or like, you know, too many cooks in one kitchen. But like I said, man, next two films, super downgrade. They should have just left it here on a high note. It's like a super high note, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I will probably next week, probably not next week, but the week after, I will go into X-Men Apocalypse. Then after that, Dark Phoenix. Next week, I'm gonna try to get done the Quicksilver solo comic adventure, because it's like you know, close to 20-ish. No, it's 13. I think it's like 13 or 14 issues. I need to get through all that, then do the spoiler review for that solo comic next Thursday. But anyway, I will see you all tomorrow for more FF16. I just wrapped up my spoiler review of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, the final season. Is up on the YouTube channel, so if you're a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'll give my thoughts about that final story before I get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. But anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great night, take care, and yeah, leave a comment below, let me know what you think. Peace.